That morning was supposed to be quiet, you know what I mean? One of those simple mornings where you fall into routine and everything feels steady, like muscle memory, like the world still makes sense, and then in 1 second somebody reminds you what they really see when they look at you, and it changes your whole life and theirs too, and maybe more than that. I had my briefcase in my hand, same one I've carried for years. Leather worn smooth at the handle corners, scuffed hinges still tight because I take care of my things. My father gave it to me the day I was sworn in, and I never stopped carrying it because it reminds me why I do what I do and who I do it for. Inside, I had what I always have: case notes printed, rulings, a pocket constitution that's got more creases than pages now, and that photo of my father in his work shirt from the garage, smiling like he was proud and tired at the same time. And I was walking up the marble steps of the federal courthouse on Jefferson Avenue like I have almost every weekday for 22 years. And I swear to you, in that moment, the sun was cutting across the columns. The whole place looked calm. It felt like discipline, like purpose. I wasn't thinking about danger or drama or going viral. I was thinking about docket order. I was thinking about motions. I was thinking about whether I was going to have time to eat lunch. And then I heard it. "Hey, you, stop right there." Sharp voice, clipped hand, already near her holster, like her thumb just lived there, like this was routine for her. I turn around slow because I know how fast things go wrong when you move fast around a nervous cop, and I see this young white female officer striding up on me like she already decided what story she's about to write. Hat, low jaw, tight stance, wide, the whole posture says I'm not asking. "This is a restricted area," she tells me, chin up like she's doing the building a favor. "Show me ID." And I'm standing on the front steps of the courthouse where I have literally had my name on official orders for 2 decades. But I stay polite because experience will teach you when someone already has you in a box. The first 10 seconds decide whether you're walking away or getting planted in it. So I say, "I'm here for work, officer." She gives me that look, that slow once-over shoes to face, like she's measuring the price of my suit and deciding it's either fake or stolen. And she goes, "Work, right, selling something." I laugh under my breath because I think she's joking. Yeah, that's on me. I really thought she was making a joke with me, like we're 2 adults starting off on the wrong foot, but we can fix it. So I say, "No, ma'am, And she cuts me off hard. "Don't move your hands." And her voice jumps like a whip and bounces off the stone loud enough that I feel heads turn. Security guards at the door shift their eyes to anywhere but us. Lawyers slow down, but act busy. That whole bystander shuffle people do when they know something is wrong, but they're praying it's not their problem. Then comes the line. "You people always got an excuse." And when I tell you it got cold in my chest, I mean right there, that fast, like a switch, because it's not a conversation anymore, it's a script, an old one, and I've seen how that script ends. My father saw how that script ends, and a whole lot of people who never made it to court saw how that script ends. Now, I could have said a lot of things in that moment. I could have pulled rank. I could have told her my title. I could have just started yelling for the marshals at the door, because truth is, 2 of the federal bailiffs inside know me by face and first name. But I didn't do that because there's something in me that still believes if you stay calm, maybe it won't get ugly. Yeah, I know, beautiful idea, right? So I keep my voice even and low, and I say, "Officer, my ID is in my briefcase. If you let me reach for it, I can..." And that's when she slapped me. Open hand fast. No warning. No build-up. Just crack. And let me tell you, that sound, that sharp smack against my cheek, it echoed off that marble like a gunshot. Like everybody in a half-block radius heard it, even if they pretended they didn't. My glasses flew off, spun on the stone. One lens cracked. My briefcase hit the steps, popped open, and all my paperwork spilled out. Rulings, notes, signed, orders with seals that should have told her exactly who I was if she'd bothered to look for half a second, all of it just fluttering down the stairs like feathers from a busted pillow. My mouth tasted like metal. My jaw stung. My pride burned. She squared up over me with her chin lifted like she'd just won something, and I watched her chest heaving, watched her shake, watched that look in her eyes, and that was not fear. I know fear, that was ownership, that was, "I put you where you belong." "Don't play smart with me," she said, real calm now, real smug. "I know your type, slick talk, cheap suit, thinks he can just walk into a federal building like he runs the place." I took a slow breath, steadying myself against the anger rising in my throat, and I said, "Ma'am, there is a misunderstanding." And before I can even finish, her hand is on my collar, slamming me back into the wall so hard the back of my head bounces off the stone and lights pop behind my eyes, and I hear her yelling, "Stop resisting." And here's the wild part, I'm not even moving, I'm letting her do it. My hands are literally at my sides, and she's still yelling like we're in a wrestling match, and her partner walks up. Martinez, big grin phone, already out like it's a show. And he laughs and says, "He giving you trouble, Kane." And she goes, trying to push past me, tried to force entry, probably casing the place. And then she cuffs me right there in front of my own courthouse, tight enough for the metal to bite through skin, tight enough to leave marks that last. She leans in close, perfume, sharp breath, hot with adrenaline, and I look her in the eye and I tell her real quiet, clear enough for her to hear and for the cameras above us to catch it. You're about to make the biggest mistake of your career. She smirks. Is that a threat? And I tell her no, that's a fact. Then she marches me inside like I'm trash she's taking to the curb. You know what broke me right there more than the slap, more than the wall, more than the cuffs? It was the faces, not hers, the others, because people saw me, people who work with me, people who walk past me every single weekday morning, and some of them froze like they knew me, and they just couldn't process what they were looking at. And some of them looked down at the floor because helping a cuffed black man in a hallway full of uniforms gets you in trouble even if you're right, and you could see all that math happening in real time in their eyes. They sat me in holding like any other arrest. No phone, no briefcase, nothing. Hands still cuffed, wrists burning, and the label on the property bag read property of defendant. And let me tell you, you can spend your whole life standing on one side of the glass and you think you understand how the other side feels, but the first time the system calls you defendant when you know damn well you are not supposed to be in that chair, it hits different. I sat there and I listened, because when they think you're nobody, they talk like you're furniture. Officer Rebecca Kane is at the computer typing her report calm, like this is just paperwork from a traffic stop, and she's saying things like, subject became agitated upon lawful contact, subject was verbally aggressive, subject attempted to enter secure area without clearance, subject resisted physical guidance, minimum force applied. And her partner Martinez is literally coaching her like, make sure you put, he tried to pull away that sticks every time. And she's nodding, not even blinking. She is building the lie in real time. And I am sitting there thinking, yeah, there it is. This is how it happens to people who never get the chance to talk about it later, right here in bullet points and checkboxes. At one point, she comes back in to get my name, trying to sound professional, trying to act like this is routine. State your full name for the record. And I look her dead in the face and I say, you already have it. And she tilts her head like she's annoyed, and under her breath she mutters, you people always gotta act important. Judge, doctor, reverend, whatever. And I tell her, and you always gotta pretend somebody's beneath you just to stand up straight. And for a second, just a second, I see it hit her. She recovers and says, keep talking and I'll add verbal aggression. And I tell her, add the truth while you're at it. And she slams the door on her way out. She thought that was control. She thought that was power. She had no idea. You ever see somebody so sure of themselves that you almost feel sorry for what they're about to walk into? You know what I mean? Like watching a person step on a landmine in slow motion and you're sitting there in cuffs and you can't even warn them. Couple hours later, they drag me into a courtroom and listen to this part. This is the part that still makes me laugh and want to break something at the same time. They filed me in the system as John Doe, unidentified black male, possible intoxication, possible threat to federal security. So now I'm literally sitting at the defendant table in my own courthouse, bruised face, split lip, wrists sore, and I am legally nobody. Judge Parker, temporary assignment, young, neat looks, tired, probably thinks this is just going to be a routine disturbance case he can clear fast before lunch. Prosecutor's name is Stevens, and here's what you need to know about him. If a police report says the sky is green, he starts building a case against anybody who swears it's blue. And of course, they call Officer Kane to the stand, and she walks up there like she's done this 100 times, takes the oath like it's nothing, crosses her legs, folds her hands, and starts performing. At approximately 8:45 a.m., I observe the subject loitering near the main entrance. She says all smooth like she's reading a grocery list. When approached, subject became confrontational and verbally aggressive. Subject refused to identify himself, attempted to push past me toward the secure area of the courthouse. I applied the minimum force necessary to ensure safety. Minimum force. You hear that and you're thinking clean, controlled professional, right? Not slap a man in the face and bounce his skull off stone. The prosecutor nods like this all makes perfect sense, like, yup, another combative trespasser, got it. Then he turns to me, sitting there in cuffs in front of a room full of people who have literally watched me sentence felons, and goes, Mr. Doe, do you wish to cross-examine the witness? And I look at her, and she looks at me, and I smile a little and I say, not yet, Your Honor. Because one thing about the truth timing matters. When they brought me back the next morning, I made a choice. The public defender they'd assigned to me tried to talk before the hearing, and I told him as respectfully as I could, I got this. He thought I was crazy, which in his defense, from his point of view, I probably looked like I had lost my mind. So we get in the courtroom, I'm still cuffed, and Judge Parker goes, "Mr. Doe, for the record, you are once again refusing counsel." And I say, "Yes, Your Honor. I will speak for myself under the Sixth Amendment." And you could feel the whole room shift like, wait, why is the trespassing suspect citing constitutional rights like he's teaching a seminar? Prosecutor stands up all puffed up like he's offended by my tone. "Your Honor, with respect, this is highly irregular." And Parker, to his credit, leans back and says, "I'm curious where this is going, I'll allow it." So I stand, slow, hands in front of me, chains still between them, wrists still raw, bruise still visible on my cheek in case anybody forgot what minimum force looks like, and I start talking nice and easy. "Let the record show, I say that Officer Kane claims she had reasonable suspicion to detain me." I pause. Reasonable suspicion as established in Terry v. Ohio 392 U.S. 1 requires specific and articulable facts. "Officer, for the record, what were those facts?" She looks at me like I just started speaking in Latin. "He was acting suspicious," she says, voice tighter than yesterday. "How?" I ask. "Please describe for the court exactly how I was acting suspicious." She opens her mouth and nothing comes out for a second. Then she goes, "He was standing near the door looking around, and somebody in the gallery snorts because they can't hold it in." I don't smile. I keep going. "Thank you. Now, Miranda v. Arizona 384 U.S. 436. At any point during my arrest, did you advise me of my right to remain silent, my right to counsel, my right to understand the charges against me?" She swallows. "I don't recall the exact wording," and I lean just a little, not loud, not aggressive, just convenient. Prosecutor explodes. "Your Honor, this man is attempting to derail a lawful proceeding." And I turn and finally look dead at him and I say, "Lawful. That's an interesting word choice." Then Judge Parker squints at me and asks the question that tips it all over, "Mr. Doe, how exactly are you familiar with these cases?" And I say, "Because I enforce them." Silence. You could feel it drop over the whole courtroom like a blanket. So I let it hang for a heartbeat. Then I look at each of them slow, like I'm introducing myself at a dinner table, and I say, "My name is Judge Malcolm Reed, United States District Court. I have presided in this courthouse for 22 years, and the woman who hit me in the face and shoved me against a wall in front of a federal building wrote down in her report that I was trespassing at my own job." Yeah, that happened. The color left the prosecutor's face like somebody unplugged him. Judge Parker sat back like he'd swallowed a nail. And Officer Rebecca Kane, for the first time since I met her, looked scared, not angry, not in control, scared like her body finally got the message her ego had been blocking. Now here's what comes next, and I'm going to be real with you. This part wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about me getting even. It was about putting a mirror in the middle of the room and forcing everybody in uniform and everybody in a suit and everybody watching from the hallway, pretending not to stare, to look at it and keep looking even when it got ugly. A few hours later, I'm back on the bench robe on bruise still visible because I'm not covering it for anybody. And the courtroom is packed in a way I haven't seen since high-profile homicide days. Except this time they're not here for a cartel leader or a corruption indictment. They're here to watch what happens when the badge is the one on trial. Rebecca Kane is now sitting at the defendant table where I sat. Hands folded, shoulders stiff, eyes red from crying she swears she's not doing. Her partners are behind her quiet. The prosecutor who was so sure yesterday is suddenly choosing every word like it's a live wire. I have her report in front of me, the one where she wrote that I was hostile, that I tried to force my way in, that she used minimal force because she feared I might be violent. I ask her to stand. She does, knees shaking. "Officer Kane," I say, voice steady. "Yesterday under oath you testified that I attempted to enter this courthouse without permission, that I became aggressive, that you restrained me only as necessary for safety, and that your body camera malfunctioned. Are those still your statements for the record?" Her voice comes out small when she says yes. I nod to my clerk. The monitors in the courtroom flicker on. We roll the security footage from the front entrance, multiple angles, multiple mics. Her voice fills the room, first thing clear as glass. "What do we have here? Another thug trying to walk where he doesn't belong." And then everybody in that room, every lawyer, every clerk, every officer, every reporter, they all hear it plain as day. The sound of her hand hitting my face. That crack I told you about. And they see the way my head snaps sideways. They see my papers scattering across the steps. They see her shove me into the stone forearm across my throat while I'm not resisting, and they hear her spit, "Scum like you has no business in a house of justice." I don't look at the screen. I already lived it. I look at her. The whole room is dead quiet. You can hear air conditioning. You can hear shoes shift on tile. When the clip ends, I ask calm, "Officer Kane, do you observe any aggression from me in that footage?" She shakes her head, tears clinging to her lashes. "No, Your Honor." "Do you observe any attempt by me to force entry, to push past you, to threaten you physically in any way?" "No, Your Honor." "Then help me understand. I say, what exactly did you fear?" She breaks voice, cracking like glass. "I don't know anymore. And I'm going to tell you something that might surprise you. I didn't feel happy in that moment. I wasn't sitting up there thinking, yeah, look at you now, I got you. What I felt honestly was tired, bone-deep tired, because I realized I was not the first person she'd ever done this to. I was just the first person she couldn't erase. The Department of Justice stepped in after that, and it moved fast, faster than I have ever seen it move. In cases like this, charges for civil rights violations, aggravated assault, falsifying an official report, obstruction, conspiracy, all of it. And she ended up taking a plea because the video was the video, right? There's no arguing with the camera. And she went from badge to jumpsuit in what felt like a blink 35 years on paper. Partners fired, department under review, city council, doing emergency press conferences talking about accountability like they just invented the word. They renamed the courthouse, they drafted what they're calling the Reed Accountability Act, mandatory bias review boards, independent storage for body cam footage, so it can't just conveniently malfunction. Civilian oversight on use of force. All these things people have been begging for, screaming for, marching for years, and now suddenly everybody's acting like this is brand new insight because a judge got slapped on camera in daylight. And I'll be real with you, people asked me after, "Do you feel like you won?" And I never knew how to answer that without sounding ungrateful, because on paper it looks like a victory. Right charges filed, officer held accountable, reforms on the table, public apology tours on cable news, my name on a plaque outside the building, all that. And I get it, for a lot of people this felt like proof that the system can still work, but let me tell you what I actually felt. I felt like I was lucky. That's it. Lucky that there were cameras angled right. Lucky that we were on federal steps and not an empty parking lot. Lucky that I'm educated in the exact language used to bury people. Lucky that I had the calm to hold the anger in my throat and keep my voice steady. Lucky that I had a title they couldn't spin. And then I thought about the people who aren't lucky. Couple months later, I'm in my office, late lights, low rain hitting the windows, courthouse mostly empty except for maintenance, and the night clerk and my assistant slides an envelope across my desk and says, "Came for you, Judge." And I look at the return address, and it's a federal correctional facility in West Virginia, and I know who it's from before I even open it. It's from her, Rebecca Kane, the woman who slapped me in front of God and cameras and called me scum. And I read this letter, and I'll be honest with you, my hands shook a little while I read it, not because I was mad, but because it felt like looking into a place I never thought she'd let anybody see. She wrote, "When you wear the badge long enough, you start to mistake fear for respect. You think control means safety. You start telling yourself you're the good guy because you're on the side that fills out the forms. I thought that. I lived that. I breathed that. The day I hit you, I felt powerful. Then I watched that video in an interrogation room, and I saw my face, and I saw yours, and for the first time in my career, I saw what I actually looked like. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I finally understand what I became." I sat with that for a long time. I put the letter in my desk next to my father's old union badge from the shop, the one I kept all these years to remind myself who I answer to. And here's the part that matters to me more than whether she cried in court, more than whether they named the building after me, more than whether I trended on the news cycle for 36 hours. Here's the part that keeps me going on the days when it feels like nothing really changes. A few weeks after that, a group of law students came to visit, all nervous and bright and sharp, asking a million questions, phones out trying to get quotes for their little documentary, and one of them, this girl with braids and a red notebook and fire in her eyes, asks me, "Judge Reed, do you think justice finally won?" And I looked at her and I smiled and I told her the truth. I said, "No, justice doesn't win. Justice doesn't lose either. Justice waits. Justice is not a trophy you hold up. It's not a headline. It's not a statue. Justice is a question you keep asking every time the story starts to repeat itself." Another one asks me, "So why keep doing it? Why keep believing in a system that did that to you?" And I tell him, because I've seen what silence does. My father stayed quiet when he got stopped and humiliated because he didn't want to make it worse for himself. My mother stayed quiet because she thought keeping her head down meant keeping us safe, and I grew up thinking dignity meant swallowing it. Now I know dignity without truth is just another version of fear. So I speak. Not because I think I'm going to fix the whole machine. I'm not that naive. I speak because sometimes it only takes one person refusing to shut up and sit down to make everybody else in the room stop pretending they don't see what's happening. That little shift, that first crack that matters. That's air getting into concrete. And I'm telling you right now, from my mouth to your screen, I'm not special. I wasn't braver than the next person. I wasn't smarter than the next person. I was just visible, and the cameras were rolling, and the right people happened to be standing in the wrong place at the right time. That should scare you a little, the fact that that's what it took. 6 months later, I walked past the front steps right where it all started, and there's this bronze plaque, now my name on it, which still feels weird in my mouth when I say it, Reed Federal Courthouse, and under that it says justice is blind. But she sees all words, my father used to say when he thought I wasn't listening. And there are school kids on a field trip taking pictures. And there's this one little boy, maybe 8, brown skin, big eyes, standing there looking up at the statue they put in the plaza, the one of me in the robe holding the gavel, and he tugs his mom's sleeve and goes, "Who's that man?" And she looks at him and says, "That's the man who made the whole city look at itself." And the kid goes, "Did he win?" And she pauses and goes, "No, baby," he reminded them. And I swear to you, I had to sit down in my chambers after that and just breathe with my eyes closed for a minute, because that right there, that was it. That was the whole point. Not winning, not revenge, not payback, not making someone cry in cuffs, just making people look. So let me end this talking directly to you, because if you're still listening right now, then you're the kind of person I actually care about reaching, and I want you to sit with this question, and I want you to answer it in the comments out loud where other people can see it, because this is bigger than me. Have you ever been treated like you were a problem before you even opened your mouth? Have you ever had somebody decide who you were before you got to introduce yourself? Have you ever felt that switch flip in a room where you went from person to threat without doing a single thing except existing in the wrong body in the wrong place in front of the wrong authority? Because if you have, then you already know what that morning felt like for me. And if you haven't, I need you to believe the people who tell you they have. Because this isn't a rare story, this is just a rare recording. So tell me below where you're watching from. Tell me if you think justice really changed here, or if it just apologized louder, because this time it was on camera. And if you're still here with me right now, drop "I see you" in the comments, because being seen is where it starts. And once we start seeing each other for real, once we start saying it out loud, that script she tried to run on me, that script that has ended so many people, that script stops working.